대한민국 첫 번째 월드클래스 엑스포 2030 부산 세계 박람회. 새로운 엑스포를 원해 부산에 유치해.
Here's your coffee.
Oh, thank you. Can I get a straw with that?
Disposable plastic straws are not allowed anymore.
Then can I get a stirring stick for my drink?
Plastic stir sticks are also subject to restriction.
Do you have a plastic bag to carry that?
The use of disposable plastic bags is prohibited too. Customers can no longer pay an extra fee to use plastic bags.
Now is the time to follow the restrictions on disposable products.
The restriction is not just for disposable utensils and plastic bags at stores, but also plastic wrappers for wet umbrellas and single-use plastic supplies used for cheering at concerts.
Our little discomforts
Can bring comfort to the earth.
This campaign is brought to you by BEFM, 부산영어방송.
The COVID-19 mask mandate has been lifted for public transportation, including buses, subways, and taxis. It's also been lifted in open space pharmacies within large-scale facilities such as shopping malls and stations. However, please be aware that mask wearing is still required in general pharmacies that are separated by doors or glass walls and in other infection-prone places such as medical institutions, nursing homes, and welfare facilities for people with disabilities. And wearing a mask is still recommended on public transit during crowded rush hours. Since masks have been proven effective, we ask that you practice personal caution and preventative measures so we can return to a new normal as safely as possible. This campaign is brought to you by BEFM, 부산영어방송.
The time is now 7 o'clock.
The death of an 8-year-old girl in Yeongdo on her way to school has really shocked the city. But even more shocking was that this wasn't the first fatal school zone accident, not even the first one on that very same street. Around 40 school zone accidents take place each year here in Busan, and some districts seem to have given up on safety management. School zones are supposed to protect people, but in reality, given what's been happening to them, how safe are these school zones in reality? Let's find out. I'm Catherine. This is Morning Wave in Busan on Tuesday, May 2nd on BEFM, 부산영어방송.
Good morning. Good morning.
Begin your day with Morning Wave in Busan.
Good morning, listeners. Welcome to our program. We are celebrating Family Month, of course. It is May. We're gearing up for Children's Day. It's coming up this Friday. Unfortunately, however, some families have been devastated by recent tragedies, some even right here in our city, specifically in Yeongdo. An 8-year-old little girl was killed when a 1.5-ton large construction netting cylinder fell from a forklift, barreled down a hill, and struck children on their way to school. She was one of the victims. Yesterday, the girl's father wrote about his daughter online, saying that her birthday was next month, and the gift he had prepared for her will go unreceived, unopened. Residents of the area say that they had always been nervous about the area of there being so much industrial work being done on a steep hill. Residents say that it was wrong of the companies to do industrial or construction work when children are going to and from school, that there had been multiple accidents on this steep, narrow hill in the past. The police are currently looking into the exact circumstances and the cause of this particular accident. They're looking into whether the company and the forklift operator had conducted proper safety measures, whether they had adhered to them, and are looking over the workload as well as other relevant laws. It's been 3 years since the parliament passed the Minshik Act, which imposes heavier punishment for fatal accidents in school zones resulting from reckless or careless driving. But if we look at the numbers from the past 3 years, the state of safety in school zones seems quite serious. According to the Busan Regional Police, there were 41 school zone accidents, resulting in 43 people getting injured, which is similar to the numbers from 2019 and 2021. June, May, and April were the months with the highest number of school zone accidents, with accidents more commonly happening after school between 2 and 4 p.m. Keep in mind that the accident in Yeongdo was not a traffic accident, but more of a case of perhaps professional negligence, meaning that the actual figures may be higher if we factor in these industrial or construction site cases. In any case, it's just been 3 years since the country rallied to pass the Minshik Act and call for basically more safety inside of these school zones. But it's not clear whether these calls have actually led to real concrete safety and protection measures for children. And so that is our main theme for today. We have our corners for you, though. Let's take a look ahead to our Tuesday morning together. We have Tips and Haps, News 101, Your Superpower with Chris. That's all in hour number 1. In hour number 2, we have Hot Clip, and then we have 2 special interviews planned for today. First up, we're going to be reviewing President Yoon Suk-yeol's trip to the United States. So let's get our expert's opinion on that trip. We also have our second special interview, which will focus on a very controversial piece of legislation, the Nursing Act. So let's stay tuned for both of those special interviews. We have Andrew coming in for sports, and then we have Global Busan Focus. If you have anything you would like to share with us, your thoughts, your opinions, please send them into BEFM, 부산영어방송 via pound 9050 shop 9050. That'll cost you 100 won. You can also reach me for free through Kakao Talk, app comment board, or Morning Wave in Busan homepage message board. Go to befm.or.kr, click on Morning Wave in Busan, and post your message on the message board. You can listen to our show on the podcast app Patbang. And we have something brand new to announce. If you've ever wondered what our show looks like behind the scenes, what our studio looks like, what our guests look like, you can actually see us, watch us live. Yes, a lot of you have been requesting this, so we are testing it out. So you can search for 부산영어방송 on YouTube. And yes, I believe we're streaming live right now. So for those of you joining us, hello. And I'll be back with Life Goes On. This is Life Goes On, where we discuss issues related to the workplace, school, home, and just about everything in between. It's May, Family Month here in South Korea, and as such, this is also the biggest month for retail and restaurant industries. With social distancing restrictions gone and masks coming off, different industries are looking forward to boosting their sales this month after a 3-year hiatus. However, considering consumer price rises, not everyone is too happy about their expenditures for this month. While kids may be looking forward to getting their Children's Day gift, well, their parents, grandparents, and aunts and uncles are getting a bit of a sticker shock for just how expensive some of the toys are. According to Statistics Korea, the Consumer Price Index for Entertainment and Culture, which includes toys, jumped by nearly 4% in March compared to the same period last year. And the types of toys available for children are quite a bit fancier than when we were kids, with price tags to boot. Some robots and games cost in the hundreds of thousand won range, with a certain brand of building blocks costing upwards of 500,000 won. One survey said that parents have set about 120,000 won as a budget for this Children's Day. What about eating out? That has also gone up considerably, with top restaurant item prices up by over 15% compared to last year. For married couples, they usually go out for Children's Day and then maybe twice for Parents' Day, both for the wife and husband's side of the family. So all the dining out and gifts really add up for an expensive family month. But many of us might be struggling with the budget sheet this month. Some are actually still splurging. Top hotel buffets have been fully booked throughout this entire month. And considering that most of the high-end hotel buffets raised their prices earlier this year to around 150,000 won per person, the bill is really going to add up. But whether you're going to a fancy dinner or staying home and ordering in, the intent of Family Month is to spend time with each other and to appreciate each other's presence. So, presence meaning, being there, not gifts. Well, let's be sure to remember that as we make plans with family this month, keep of these important ideas in mind. Being together, loving each other, and showing that. And this is how life goes on. We're ready for our first song break. Here it is. We Are Family by Sister Sledge.
As we walk on by, and we fly just like birds of a feather. I won't tell no lie. All of the people around us, they say, can they be that close? Just let me state for the record, we're giving love in a family dose. We are family. Hey, I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Sing it to me. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. just begun to get our share of this world's delight. High hopes we have for the future and our goals in sight. We know we don't get depressed. Here's what we call our golden rule. Have faith in you and the things you do. You won't go wrong. Oh no, this is our family jewel. We are family. Sing it to me. I got all my sisters with me. Sing it to me. We are family. I can hear you guys. Get up, everybody, sing. Have faith in you and the things you do. Hey, hey, I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, y'all. Get up, everybody, sing. Hey, hey, we are family. I got my sisters with me. I got all my sisters with me. Everybody, hey, hey, hey. We are family. Y'all, hey, hey, get up, everybody, sing. Get up and sing it to me.
All right, everybody. We have Haley in the studio. She's filling in for Annie once again throughout the week. We're ready for tips and haps. So here we go. Good morning.
Good morning.
I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful morning once again.
It is, and it's like really warming up, right?
Yeah.
So the city's beach and coastal areas are definitely getting more crowded, and one fixture of the city's summertime activities was, of course, the huge crowds gathered at Milak Waterfront on weekend nights. But apparently that won't be happening this year.
Right. You know, as we know, Milak Waterfront Park was the hot place to go
Yes.
during summer nights. However, you can still go, but you can't drink there
I
starting
see.
on July 1st.
Uh-huh.
So Suyong District announced that once again, as of July 1st, alcohol consumption, aka drinking, will be banned in Milak Waterfront Park. So this is under Article 8 of the Public Health Promotion Act. A local government can designate specific areas as alcohol-free zones. And the district council passed the necessary laws last year to provide legal foundations for this. So the district has made the official administrative announcement. And with this, they're going to hold a public briefing tomorrow and take public opinion until May 17th.
Okay.
But unless there are serious legal objections to this, the law will go into effect starting July 1st. And then from then on, if you are caught drinking in the park, you may face fines of up to 50,000 won.
I see. Well, what's the reasoning behind the district giving, for this alcohol ban? Is there a reason?
Right. So the waterfront park has been, once again, one of the most popular spring and summer nighttime spots in Busan. And this park was famous among young people for outdoor drinking because it's free. It offers a beautiful view of the bridge.
Sure.
But at the same time, because it's so popular, it is right next to an apartment complex. It's in a residential area.
Right.
So it's been a sort of a thorn on the side of many local people. Noise problems, a huge amounts of trash that
Sure.
accumulate on the beach every weekend. And for the last 3 years, COVID risks. So, well, at least the COVID issue is gone for now. The first two problems still remain. And the district says that it has received numerous complaints from the residents about noise, trash, and illegal vendors. The district actually, starting back in 2019, began to turn off the street lights inside the park starting at midnight to
Okay.
chase people away. But guess what people have? Cell phones with flashlights. So people
yes.
just turned on their cell phone flashlights
So
and
resourceful.
kept drinking. All right, very creative. So there are, of course, objections that this alcohol ban is an excessive infringement on the people's rights. However, Suyong District is of the position that they will turn the park into a family-friendly waterfront leisure area.
Well, think of it this way. In certain countries, like I know in California, for one, you can't drink at all.
I think in the U.S., with
Generally
the exception of there's the Las Vegas Strip.
Yeah.
You can't drink outdoors.
Like at a park, at a beach, or
Right,
any public
right.
area, you're not supposed to be drinking. So, let's take this, with a grain of salt. It's just one area where they're banning it. All right, next up, this month of May is not only Family Month, it's also known as Oceans Month here in Busan.
That's right. So Busan City says it has designated May as Busan Oceans Month and will be holding a variety of events to highlight our city's status as the City of Oceans. So the week of May 22nd will be specifically Ocean Week. And that's going to begin with a declaration ceremony and also the Ocean Environmental Conference and the Ocean Economy Forum. And May 25th will be the big event, the Busan Ocean Conference. So a lot of that is for experts and academics, but for what we, the general public, can participate in, a civic group for marine conservation will launch officially on May 27th, and they'll be holding a event to collect trash on the shores. The Busan Port Festival will take place on the same day, 27th and the 28th,
Yes.
in conjunction with the Oceans Week. And according to an official from Busan City, this Oceans Month will solidify Busan's position as a city of oceans and to help with sort of heating up the support for Busan's bid for the 2030 World Expo.
That's right. Well, let's turn to our traffic and weather for right now.
Right. So there is congestion as a lot of us are going back to work after Labor Day. Oh, there's been an accident on Jinyang ramp going out of the city. There's a 2-car collision. So backup is cars are backing up behind it. There is congestion on Sukdeung intersection going towards Deokcheon intersection, as well as congestion on Hwamyeong Bridge going towards the Anmak IC. And in terms of the weather, it is pretty much the same as yesterday. Currently, it's 11 degrees Celsius, but expected to get pretty hot in the daytime with the highs of 23. Fine dust is good and ultrafine dust is normal. However, pollen count is high, especially from pine trees. So leave your windows, you do have to ventilate your homes, but if you leave your windows open for a long time because the weather seems nice, be prepared to have your furniture covered with pollen.
Right, and for those with allergies.
Yeah, masks are recommended.
Yes, well, thanks for that. We'll check in with Haley in just a little bit in hour number 2, maybe.
Actually, I'll be back for News 101 in a couple seconds.
A couple seconds, yes. I'm so confused. It's not Monday. It's Tuesday. Yes. So we are going back to our main topic at hand. We're talking about the fatal industrial accident in a school zone in Yeongdo that resulted in the death of an 8-year-old girl. And it turns out despite another fatal accident last year, the district office had neglected to take measures to improve safety. On the contrary, some districts have preemptively and rapidly responded to similar risk factors, setting examples for others. In Bukgu district, for instance, there is construction going on near Kumgok Elementary School to build an elevator for a nearby apartment complex. But when heavy rain came down at the end of March, that led to parts of the construction site collapsing. And the district dispatched heavy machinery to fix up the site and how the construction site dispatched safety personnel. The vice principal of the elementary school said that the school also directed the students to avoid the construction area and notify the students. She also expressed satisfaction at the level of safety the district had provided. The thing is, these safety accidents are very often preventable as there are clear signs beforehand. And in the cases that directly concern the safety of children, no action is excessive or rapid enough. A lesson that all schools, companies, and municipalities should take to heart. And I'll be back with News 101.
Transforming our world. Navigating toward a better future. The great transformation begins right here in Busan through the 2030 Busan World Expo. Busan will set a new course toward a better tomorrow for the Earth and for humanity. So we need your support to start a new movement.
I support.
지지합니다.
I support. I support.
지지합니다.
I support.
Busan, the city where you can experience nature, technology, and people. The one and only 2030 Busan World Expo awaits you.
See you right here in Busan.
See you right here in Busan. This campaign is brought to you by BFM, 부산영어방송.
News.
This terrifying sound echoes through the chamber.
Political debates.
Some of the deductions.
Governor, I gotta, actually, I need to have you both hang up.
Experts from a variety of fields.
It's challenging. Patients cannot see our faces, and especially...
Hear all of these right here on Morning Wave in Busan with Catherine.
It's now time for News 101, and Haley's here once again to give us the latest in terms of all the news. So for our first story, Haley, let's talk about this, one of the hottest issues in the financial sector. And so this is the stock plunge for SG. So can you tell us what's going on?
Right. So last month in April, shares for these 8 companies saw a considerable plunge of 30% beginning on April 24th. So this was the beginning of this so-called SG-led stock decline. And the companies that were affected were Daesung Holdings, Seoul Gas, Sunkwang, Samcheonri, Saebang, Dow Data, among others. So for the next 4 days from the 24th, these companies saw between 40 and 70% drop in their shares. And that resulted in 8.2 trillion won just basically evaporating in stock value. And the reason that this is called the SG case is that the French-based multinational financial services company, Societe Generale, that's I think the Spanish pronunciation, so General Society, SocGen, or SC, ordered mass sales of these holdings. So experts say that this is likely a stock manipulation case gone wrong, and the authorities have launched an investigation.
And a term we've seen in the news connected to this case is CFD. So what exactly is CFD?
Right. So going to Economics 101, experts say that stock manipulators allegedly use the CFD method to potentially inflate stock prices. So this stands for contract for differences.
Okay.
So this is a contract between a buyer and a seller. In this case, investors and stock selling company. It stipulates that the buyer must pay the seller only the difference between the current value of an asset and its value at contract time.
Okay.
So usually when we buy stocks, you pay for the full price of the stock. But in this case, they would be only paying for the differences of the value versus current value at contract time.
Okay.
So the thing is that the investor then does not have to actually own stocks. He or she just pays a deposit. And then the securities company buys the shares for the investor. So ultimately, they give the investor the difference and pockets the commission. So the thing is, though, if the stock values fall, then the investor actually needs to pay for the losses. And if they can't, the securities company sells the shares.
Okay, well, isn't this a practice that's, pretty much done in stock markets? But what are the stock manipulation allegations coming from then?
Right, so keep in mind that CFD is not illegal.
Right.
So why is this then under investigation? Well, the nature of the CFD is that investors can, quote unquote, buy large number of stocks without actually having to pay for them because they just pay the difference.
Yes.
So there's now, going back to this SG case, one unregistered financial advising company, it's been referred to as just H, which allegedly opened up some 200 cell phone numbers under their investors' names.
Okay.
And that includes some famous celebrities. This is why it's so high profile. And they've been allegedly buying up stocks for the investors over the course of up to 3 years. So they've been slowly raising stock values of specific companies to potentially evade questions from the financial authorities.
Okay.
So it seems that the attempts were concentrated especially in 2020 recently, and that is coincidentally when the government eased restrictions for CFDs. So this has set the stage for stock manipulators to lure investors with these promises of low risk, low investment CFDs. And there are multiple large scale investors who say that they've lost up to billions. But in terms of how much or how many smaller day traders lost money, that's still unknown.
I see. Thanks for explaining this kind of complicated thing to our listeners. Yes. Well, this next story is a rather dark one. Last month, a teenager in Gangnam committed suicide and apparently live streamed the whole thing. And an online community may have been involved in this.
Right. So for our listeners and those watching online, this is a trigger warning because we're going to be talking about suicide and recent cases of them. So according to a Statistics Korea report, the suicide rate among children and teens 17 or under, it has reached the highest since the year 2000. And that is despite the overall decline of suicide rates in the country. So some people point to social media and online communities as a potential culprit in the high rates of teenage suicide for allegedly aiding and abetting these thoughts and even some people encouraging them. So going back to the case last month, the teenager in Gangnam you mentioned, well, this case also involves an online community called DC Inside, and it apparently has what's called a depression gallery. And the term gallery is used for an online discussion forum. And this community is officially under police investigation. So reports say that when teens, including the one that we're talking about, when they come to this forum for advice on depression, some members, and most of whom are adults, sometimes joke about them and even mock them. And some members even allegedly met up with the teens in person, shared ways to allegedly commit self-harm, and even sexual assault may have taken place. So according to a Seoul National University Medical School survey back in 2018, 17% of those who attempted suicide said that online sites affected their actions. And keep in mind that this is back in 2018.
Yes.
So much more online presence is happening now. And according to a Health and Welfare Ministry report, harmful suicide-related information online jumped by 8 times. I'm not saying 8%, 8 times between 2018 and 2022. So experts say that such information and predatory individuals can both directly and indirectly affect people in vulnerable mental and emotional states, especially teenagers. So please be aware.
Absolutely, especially if you're a parent or a guardian, yes, be aware of these sites. All right, starting this week, we'll be able to go to 65 Buddhist temples for free.
Right. So according to the Cultural Heritage Administration, the CHA, the public will be able to enter 65 temples that are owned by the Choge Order of Korean Buddhism for free starting May 4th. So that's in a couple of days.
Okay.
So that's because the Cultural Heritage Protection Act revisions go into effect on that date. And this allows the government to provide financial support for owners of a designated cultural heritage site to waive admission fees for the general public.
Okay.
And the government has allocated 41.9 billion won to pay for the compensations in this year's budget. So going to the little bit of background to why this is happening. So there's been some controversy in the past over some Buddhist temples charging admission fees to not only enter the buildings, but the general premises, the grounds. So if you remember couple decades back, we did used to have to pay to go into national parks. And back then, temple admission fees, these temples are usually located in mountains, thus national parks. The fees were originally included in the national park admission. But then, starting in 2007, national park entry became free, and temples then separately collected admission fees to enter their grounds.
I see.
So their position is that this measure is inevitable to properly preserve and manage these state-designated cultural assets. However, the thing is, they also charged fees to hikers and climbers who are not going to the temples, but just passing by to get to the summit.
Right.
So they have protested the charges. And this was one of the episodes of the very popular drama, Extraordinary Attorney Woo.
Yes,
So
I was
that's
gonna
what
say,
this is. So you're probably
bell.
familiar with it. But then now that controversy is at least ending because with the new law going into effect, visitors will no longer have to worry about admission fees. So by the way, the Cultural Heritage Administration is taking applications for cultural heritage site owners or managers for this new compensation program.
Well, thanks for letting us know. Starting May 4th, you can enter these 65 particular temples for free. All right, next up, let's focus on an election. We're talking about an election in the South American nation, Paraguay. And interestingly, this election is being closely monitored by China and Taiwan.
That
Why?
is right. So voters in Paraguay elected the conservative ruling party candidate, Santiago Peña. So Peña is an economist who ran on a platform to get out of the years of economic stagnation. Interestingly, with his victory as the future president of Paraguay, Taiwan is breathing a sigh of relief. So that's because currently Paraguay is among the only 14 countries that have official diplomatic relations with Taiwan. As a bit of background, China sees Taiwan as a part of its territory, and Beijing refuses to maintain diplomatic ties with any country that recognizes Taiwan. So recently, Honduras, or in Korean, Honduras, has until now been one of these countries that diplomatically recognized Taipei over Beijing.
Sure.
But they've very recently switched sides to kind of leave this group in favor of ties to Beijing. So going back to Paraguay, Mr. Peña's rival, Efrain Alegre, he actually proposed dropping Paraguay's ties with Taiwan and establishing relations with China. So that's why if he had won, then the country's diplomatic relations would have changed. But with the conservative ruling party candidate winning, that ties to Taipei will remain.
Yes. Well, thanks for going over all the news, and thanks for coming in and, of course, filling in for Annie as well. We'll check in with you tomorrow, right?
Yes, that's right. See you tomorrow.
All right, Haley. We're going to take a song break, so here it is. Eyes Closed by Ed Sheeran.
Know it's a bad idea, but how can I help myself? Been inside for most this year, and I thought a few drinks they might help. It's been a while, my dear, dealing with the cards life dealt. I'm still holding back these tears, well, my friends are somewhere else. I pictured this year a little bit different when it hit February. A step in the bar, it hit me so hard. Oh, how can it be this heavy? Every song reminds me you're gone, and I feel the lump form in my throat. 'Cause I'm here alone, just dancing with my eyes closed. 'Cause everywhere I look, I still see you. And time is moving so slow, and I don't know what else that I can do. So I'll keep dancing with my eyes closed. So I'll keep dancing with my delusion is here again, and I think you'll come home soon. But what brings me right back in? Then it's only me that's in this room. I guess I could just pretend the colors are more than blue, but I lost more than my friend. I can't help but missing you. I pictured this month a little bit different. No one is ever ready, and when it unfolds, you get in a hole. Oh, how can it be this heavy? Everything changes, nothing's the same, except the truth is now you're gone, and life just goes on. So I'm dancing with my eyes closed. 'Cause everywhere I look, I still see you. And time is moving so slow, and I don't know what else that I can do. So I'll keep dancing with my eyes closed. So I'll keep dancing with my eyes closed. shutting the bar, they're cleaning the floor, and everyone is already home. But I'm on my own, still dancing with my eyes closed. 'Cause everywhere I look, I still see you. Time is moving so slow. I don't know what else that I can do, so I'll keep dancing with my eyes closed. Eyes. Oh, I keep dancing with my eyes closed. Oh, I keep dancing with my.
All right, listeners, it's now time for your superpower with Chris. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, so I want to let our listeners know, because I know many of them were not tuning in. Maybe yesterday they had the day off. So we are starting a brand new thing. We are live streaming on YouTube. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is it's a brand new thing for a station because many of you, the listeners, requested this. You wanted the live streaming. And your voices have been heard, so we're testing it out. What you can do is you can go to that platform, YouTube, type in 부산영어방송, and you can tune in right now. We're being streamed live, so
and
you
I can literally see your comments right here on my phone.
Yay! Yay! So we have Chris in the studio, Chris Norland, and we are going to go over what are we talking about today?
We're talking about managing your time.
Oh.
Which is something.
So broad, yes.
It's something that we do every day, and I want people to think about it in a conscious way. And when we talk about managing time, so I'll give you a simple example: is going to the grocery store. Okay?
Yes.
So you could do it a couple different ways. You could go every day, and you can buy food, or you could go once a week, etc. And I want you to actually just think about. Add up all of the time you actually spend in the grocery store. Well, true story. Because if we're managing our time properly, you would not go at the busy times.
Oh, no.
Right?
Yes.
So for example, I went yesterday. It was like a holiday. And I was like, is this a holiday? Because I can't keep track of the holidays, right?
Yes.
and you're going to spend more time waiting in line, et cetera, right?
Were there a lot of people?
Yeah. And so, you go on certain times during the weekend, and it's this crazy amount of people, and you have to wait an extra probably 10 minutes or whatever, and that starts to add up. So that's just one example I want people to think about, because when sometimes people say, I don't have enough time to move ahead in my career.
Sure.
I don't have enough time to get where I want to go. I just don't have the time. And just one thing I'm thinking about, this one simple task right there is how much time do you just spend at the grocery store? It's not something that a lot of people calculate. But it's something you get annoyed at and you think about, but I want you to think about how can you change it. Now, I'll just give you an example.
Okay.
So let's say you went once a week instead of 5 days a week, for example, right? You would buy all of your food for the week. And if you get yourself into a pattern, you would say, okay, I eat pork, once a week. I eat beef once a week. I eat chicken once a week. And then I eat vegetables, whatever. But the point is you kind of remove that decision making to where you're wasting time going every day. Okay, am I eating beef or chicken? It's like, no, I've already made a decision. I'm eating this kind of
and
stuff.
if you meal plan ahead of time,
you get what I'm saying.
You have a list, and that's even cutting down on the time, even further, right?
Yeah, I mean, even if you're at home deciding, okay, which I'm going to eat, and this is something my wife and I do is like, I always say, hey, what are we eating today? It's like a menu. She's got it planned, and I don't argue with her. Okay, fine, that's what we're eating, and then you put that together sort of with what your doctor says, etc. But this is a great way to make more time.
Yes.
To say listen to BFM, for example, but to think about how to be more productive if you want to improve your life. So that's going to be either via reading the books or like so listen to this.
Okay.
And more on top of that, talking about managing your time, and probably listeners are doing it right now, and I applaud. Is on your way to work or be it driving, subway, etc. Is to fill that sort of dead space time with something productive, right?
Yes.
So listening to our conversations every morning, et cetera, it is something very useful. So, for example, I do like music. It's not like I don't like music, but I find that it's not great for my mind, to be perfectly frank.
Ah.
Right. So if I had to do an hour commute every day, which a lot of people do,
Yes.
I'm listening to either some sort of talk radio, I'm listening to some sort of audio book, I'm reading something. Yes, I'll listen to some music, but what I'm saying is that there's time in the day for you to improve yourself and take advantage of that extra time.
Sure.
Right.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you have to stress out and do calculus or anything like that.
Oh, calculus. It's been so long. Yes.
Yeah. So, other things with you and your time is as well, and we talked about the grocery store example, is sometimes we spend too much time thinking about things that aren't worth our time, to be perfectly frank. Okay. So I'll give you one example, and we all have this, is how many times do you hear someone maybe yell at you at work, or maybe someone yell at you at school, or wherever your situation is, or it doesn't have to be yelling, but just say something negative that sort of affects you for the rest of the day.
Oh, yeah.
And you're spending all that time thinking about this negative thing that this person said to you.
Yes, it's just there, hanging over you like a cloud all day, and the time spent though thinking about that though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of keeping you distracted, maybe preventing you from focusing on what needs to be focused on. Yeah. And it's just a lot of time wasted.
And given the choice, right, think about how you manage your time. Would you rather think about how people say bad things about you, or think about what your friends say good things about you? I mean, the choice should be simple, right?
It should be simple, but you know how it is. We can get neurotic, all of us, at one time.
Well, they always say, it's it takes, 7 positive comments to remove that one negative. They always say those kind of things because psychologically, but it doesn't have to be that way. And so sort of what I'm telling you guys is when we think about our time.
Okay.
Don't spend so much time on that negative person, that negative energy, and put out of your mind. It's not
Sure.
important. It's not important.
Okay.
It's more important to move forward. And it's funny because we're talking about all these different tasks that we can do to improve and be more efficient, right?
Right.
But what it's all about is kind of focusing on what's important. And a good way to think about that as well, and this is something that I have my conversations with my wife all the time. There's 2 things involved with this. So one is, when you think about our choices that we make in life, I always ask myself, if I don't do X, would I regret it the rest of my life?
If I don't do this, will I? Okay.
Right. And so I'm putting in that context, for example, if I don't take that job, or if I don't move that other city, or something like that. And so one of the advices I always have for students, I've said the thing for eternity essentially, my students is always say yes to most things. I say most things, not every single thing, but say yes, because opportunities may not come again, right? And you can do something and then afterwards, if you don't like it, just then say no. But when you say no right away to things, you're not giving yourself a chance to determine whether or not that thing would be good.
Okay.
I say thing because it could be any number of things for people, right? And the reason why also too we're talking about sort of live without regrets is sort of every day, and we just talked about focusing too much on negative people, for example. Sometimes we focus a lot on things that we really want to do, and then you spend all this time asking other people, did you think I should do it? Do you think I should do it?
What do you think? What do you think? What do you think?
But a person really knows what they want to do.
But why do you ask? So why do we ask over and over? Do we want that reassurance?
You feel like you need permission to be yourself.
Oh, permission.
To be yourself, right? And I always tell my students like that. You don't need permission to be yourself. Be yourself.
Right.
Right. If that's the things that you want to go for in life, do that. And going back to say the grocery store example.
Yes.
Is you make time in the day, right? So if you save time in the grocery store, then you have more time to focus on yourself and focus on the things that you want.
That really matter. I mean, not that grocery shopping is not important. It is, but, there might be other tasks that require, more time.
Right.
More concentration. Yes.
So a good example, say the grocery store one, or say house cleaning one. Right. So for many people out there, I would say just hire someone.
Oh, if you can afford to do so, yeah. Because your time, that is something that a lot of people don't take into account in terms of calculating, the cost benefit of maybe getting some extra outside help.
Right.
I'll be honest, like I used to have a nanny who used to watch my kids and she would do a little bit of housework, not much though, right? And then I remember like, my kids were old enough where we didn't need the nanny anymore. And then, the housework, there was so much housework because we're like, we got rid of the nanny,
Right.
thanked her for her years of excellent service. And then I was just like, I don't know how to clean the house. I don't know how to do this. And then it became like I felt like I was always running out of time. And then I was tempted to hire, outside help in terms of cleaning and, getting my house, tidy and all. And then I started, I said to my family, we're all old enough. We can kind of spread it out.
Sure.
Right. And so we kind of divvied up all the chores. And then now we have it down to almost a science. And then like when I have to do what I have to do, I can do it, talk about multitasking. It's not really multitasking, but because the machines are doing it for me, AKA the washing machine.
Yeah.
My dishwasher. But, in terms of managing it, like I know what I do. I always do the laundry first. And then I put the dishes into the dishwasher. And then I cook. So I feel like I'm doing three things are getting done. Managing time, right? Getting done simultaneously. But it's not really multitasking because the machines are doing it for me. But still, yes, it's getting done.
Well, it's funny you bring up the dishwasher thing. So I'm not advocating any particular company.
Yes.
But the coolest change in my life, or our life, I should say, or our lives, maybe the last couple of years, is the robot vacuum.
Oh, yeah.
The thing saves so much time because I don't need to waste time vacuuming my house, and the vacuum can do it better because it can go under the bed, under the couch, better than anyone. And so, and regarding for example, the food example, the grocery store thing, right? One of the things that is so fabulous about Korea, and this trumps, and I think you know what I'm going to say, and this trumps pretty much everywhere else I've lived in the world, is the affordable food at restaurants.
Right.
Affordable, and not only just affordable, healthy.
Healthy and good quality. The quality is good too, right?
Because it's much more difficult to have this lifestyle in the USA, to be perfectly frank. Right?
Absolutely.
Like I can't go to it's because like where we live in Somyeong area, right? There's these police academies around there, and they have the people who go to those academies go to the cafeterias.
Yeah.
And those cafeterias are like 6,000 won, 7,000 won.
Oh, so affordable.
And it's like kind of like a buffet. I don't really get it exactly how that even makes sense. But, but you can just pile on the food there, and it's like all these vegetables. So basically, if you want to be a vegetarian, you totally can, which is really, really healthy. So that is another way to manage time because I always look at this food and I'm just like, so why do we cook? What's the purpose of cooking when I can eat because it's affordable, it's healthy, and I would never buy that many vegetables on my own. And even if I would, they're gonna go bad because
in the refrigerator.
Well, vegetables don't last long enough for me to eat 10 varieties. So that's another example of saving time by going out, which is counter to what you do in the U.S.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Any other ways we can better manage our time?
Yeah, so here's an important one, and we could probably spend a couple weeks on it, is sleep well.
Sleep well? What do you mean by that?
So for a lot of people, and I'm telling you right now, if you're watching this and you're watching the live stream, don't do too much digital activity before you go to sleep.
They tell you that. They tell you that all the time. It's real. Like, the blue screen, the blue light, it's bad for you. It's going to disrupt your sleep pattern and all that. But I'm guilty of it too, I am too. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say, "Oh, I read every night." No, I don't. Not every night. I am guilty of it too.
So, and I know we're talking about, like, for example, you're watching our streams and you're doing it right before you go to bed and stuff like that. But it's also to say playing games that are giving you a bunch of stimuli. Right. So what you need to be thinking about doing is sort of putting in your routine a cool down method.
Cool down.
Getting yourself the same way you say do your stretches before you go for a jog, or you do your post stretches, cool down stretches. I don't know actually. You do your cool down stretches, but it's the same way with sleep. You get prepared to sleep, and then you'll have a much better sleep. The same way that you wake up and you have your morning routine. So a lot of people don't take too seriously their sleep routine on preparing to sleep.
Well, very interesting managing your time. That was our theme for today. But we're going to call it a wrap for this segment and this week. But thank you so much, Chris. And we look forward to next week as well.
Yeah, thank you. And hopefully we'll see everyone again.
All right. Well, everybody, this was Chris Norland with your superpower. Looking ahead to hour number 2, we have 2 special interviews planned for you. First up, we're going to do a recap, a review of President Yoon Suk-yeol's visit to the United States. He was on a state visit. He's back in the country. And our second interview will focus on the Nursing Act because it's pretty controversial. So let's find out from the legal side, the legal perspective with our expert in hour number 2. And we're going to leave it with this song for the first hour. Here it is. This is Extreme Ways by Moby. Enjoy, and I'll be back at 8.
Perfect color me. Extreme ways that help me out late at night. Extreme places I had gone, but never seen any light. Dirty basements, dirty noise, dirty places coming through. Extreme worlds alone. Did you ever like it then? I would stand in line for this. There's always room in life for this. I didn't give up the light. I closed my eyes and closed myself and closed my world and never opened up to anything that could get me at all. I had to close down everything. I had to close down my mind. Too many things caught me. Too much could make me blind. I've seen so much in so many places, so many heartaches, so many faces, so many dirty things you couldn't even believe. I would stand in line for this. It's always good in life for this.
부산을 한 장의 사진에 담는다면 어디로 가야 할까요? 꼬꼬마 시절 이때만큼은 세상을 내려다보며 꿈을 키웠고 용돈을 모아 산 사진기는 아직도 서랍 속에 있습니다. 시간이 흘러 키는 자라고 사진은 어디서든 찍을 수 있는 세상이 되었지만 부산의 진짜 모습을 보기 위해서는 같이 가볼 곳이 있습니다. 광복동에서 부산을 내려다보며 우리와 함께 해온 그곳. 새롭게 불을 밝힌 다이아몬드 타워와 함께 용두산 공원이 우리를 다시 찾아왔습니다. 북한과 남항, 멀리 남구와 해운대까지 부산을 한눈에 담을 수 있는 그곳. 알록달록 꽃시계와 함께 다시 시민의 품으로 돌아온 용두산 공원은 부산의 또 하나의 명소입니다. 이 캠페인은 대선공익재단과 BFM 부산영어방송이 함께합니다.
9년 전 한국에서의 새로운 출발을 위해 부산을 처음 찾은 프랭크. 부산의 자연과 사람, 부산에서 누리는 모든 것을 사랑하는 그는 부산의 변함없는 한대에 늘 감탄합니다.
I think that Busan people are actually very kind and very welcoming. If I seemed a little lost, there was always someone that was there to ask me if I needed help. They're more seriously friendly than it's very serious. I very seriously want to help you.
부산의 한결같은 모습도 늘 감동을 주지만 이제는 부산의 미래를 꿈꾸며 2030년 부산의 새로운 도약을 기대합니다.
Busan people are very proud of their city. They want to share the city with everyone. If we get the World Expo, it'll really put Busan on a global map.
세계 박람회가 어울리는 도시, 미래를 향한 힘찬 도약. 부산에서 출발한 파도는 이미 세계를 향해 뻗어 나가고 있습니다. 2030 부산 세계 박람회. 부산이 시작하고 대한민국이 함께 이뤄갑니다. 이 캠페인은 지역과 함께하는 든든한 동반자 BNK 부산은행과 함께합니다.
저희 중소기업은 광고비가 제일 부담되죠.
코바코에서 TV, 라디오 광고비 지원받으세요. 혁신형 중소기업 방송광고 지원 제도로 광고비 70% 할인이나 250% 보너스 광고 지원.
코바코로 문의하세요. 051-751-0400.
Hi, my name is Margaret Chow, and I'm an adoptee from Busan. As I got older, I felt the urge to find my birth family, and that's what brought me to Korea. I moved to Busan last September to begin my journey in earnest to find my birth family. Along the way, I've met an array of people here. My first outing in Busan was to a cat's birthday party. Despite it being an odd way of meeting people, I met a lot of Busan expats that night. They are from all around the world, and I would say they have something in common. They love this city and now call Busan their home. Busan likely won't be my final stop. However, it will always be a lasting part of who I am because just like many of my friends, Busan has become a new home to me. Global City Busan, we're in it together. This campaign was brought to you by BEFM, 부산영어방송.
The time is now 8 o'clock.
And now, begin your day with Morning Wave in Busan.
Good morning.
Tired of searching for a great morning show? If you're listening to this, you're tuned into the right frequency. Don't touch that dial. Stay tuned to Morning Wave.
Begin your day with Morning Wave in Busan with Catherine.
Yesterday here in Korea, we were commemorating Workers' Day. So we have a clip today of what's happening in Paris, France. And this is a clip from MSNBC.
We are in central Paris, not far from Place de la République, and demonstrators, it's hard to know how many, but it looks like more than 100,000, perhaps many more than that, have come out onto the streets, and this is all about pension reforms. This is about changing the retirement age from 62 to 64. About 2 weeks ago, a new law was passed. People here say the new law was forced through by President Emmanuel Macron. It was approved by a court here, the equivalent of the Supreme Court. So now it is law, but this new pension reform here, the new retirement age, 64 years old, has yet to be implemented. So people across the country are coming out. They're trying to bring this country to a standstill because they do not want this law to be implemented. So they are out on the streets, but not just that. They are having strikes. They have not been collecting the garbage. Air traffic controllers are on strike, which has disrupted flights at many airports. Also, some overflights over this country have been disrupted. So even flights that are not departing from French airports have had to be canceled because the air traffic controllers, or not all of them anyway, are at their jobs. And what people here say, it is not just about the 2 extra years that they will have to work. They say it is more about French culture, that the traditional work-life balance that has become enshrined in French society here is at risk, is being chipped away, and that is why they are out on the streets. Although 64 is still low, even in Europe, and considerably lower than the United States, which is 67. And it is not just actions like these that they are taking, where they're out on the streets, they're blocking traffic. Obviously, there have been some smashed windows along the routes. There have been some incidents where police have been firing tear gas. They also plan to keep this up until the fall or beyond the fall, because this law is expected to be implemented in the fall.
Once again, that was a clip from MSNBC. You could hear it in the background as a reporter was reporting on what was happening in Paris on the streets. So across France, at least 108 police were wounded and 291 people were detained as there was some violence that erupted in several cities on the sidelines of the main union-led marches. That's according to the Interior Minister. Once again, it's all about this decision by Emmanuel Macron, the president, upping the eligible pension age from 62 to 64. It will be implemented in a few months. So we'll see if this continues, the protesting. For example, in Marseille, a group of more than 100 demonstrators even briefly occupied a luxury hotel near the old port before being pushed back by police. There was also tear gas fired in other cities. Anyhow, this was how May Day went down in France. This was your hot clip for today.
News.
This terrifying sound echoes through the chamber.
Political debates.
Some of the deductions.
Governor, I need to have you both hang up.
Experts from a variety of fields.
It's challenging. Patients cannot see our faces, and especially...
Hear all of these right here on Morning Wave in Busan with Catherine.
This is our special interview. Last week, President Yoon Suk-yeol, he went on a state visit to the United States. His trip marked the first time a Korean president has visited the U.S. on a state visit in 12 years. So given the rising tension and pressure here on the Korean Peninsula, this trip, of course, had very much a spotlight on it. What are some takeaways from his visit to the U.S.? Let's find out. We have invited back to the airways a very frequent guest, Professor Kim Byung-ju. He's a former diplomat and now affiliate professor at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Let's see what he has to say. Hi, Professor. Welcome back.
Good morning.
Yes, so if you can first tell us about your assessment of President Yoon's visit to the U.S., what were some of the key takeaways for you?
As you mentioned, the first time state visit in 12 years. So I think last time it was Lee Myung-bak who visited the United States when Obama was in the White House. So it's been a while. And overall, the presentation of the relationship between the two countries to the audience in Washington inside Beltways, I think that was really a big success. A lot of people reacted very positively. For example, this is my personal story, but several of my foreign friends overseas, one in Singapore, the other one in Australia, and so on, they reacted quite interestingly and with great enthusiasm. They were saying, "Oh, we didn't know that your president can sing." The overall atmosphere that was displayed at the White House, Biden-Yoon friendship and so on, that gave Korea a strengthened status in terms of as an ally, and that was a big plus. And also, speech at the joint session of the U.S. Congress, the reaction from the lawmakers, their standing ovation, particularly keeping in mind that the United States, like Korea, is a country where they change government. Sometimes it's a democratic government, like right now. And after 2024, there's a chance that there will be a Republican government. But having such a support and warm reception from both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats alike at the U.S. Congress, and that I think was a very important, progress or achievement that was made there during the visit.
Well, early on in the visit, of course, there was the summit and then the Washington Declaration. So tell us more about this Washington Declaration and what does it really say? Because there was a bit of different rhetoric, might I say, coming from the two different sides after this?
Yeah, this summit began with a long list of agendas, very important agendas. And the one that topped the list was indeed United States action to address rising concerns inside Korea. In Korea, facing such a great threat from North Korea, there have been calls for a nuclear rearmament of our own. South Korea acquiring nuclear weapons may be necessary, some people have argued, because there will be an ultimate solution to the problem altogether. And some others were saying the United States has to redeploy nuclear weapons here, South Korea, in order to defend South Korea credibly. And some others were saying at least we need something like a European arrangement, like a nuclear sharing. And the new Washington Declaration that came out this time was the one that addresses this concern. It's the lowest level as compared to those three options of self-rearmament, nuclear armament, or redeployment, or nuclear sharing. But still, it was a very strong statement in terms of U.S. commitment to defend Korea and respond in kind with nuclear weapons if there is a North Korean invasion or serious provocations.
Yes. In terms of the outlook on Korea's relationship with other major countries, namely China and Russia, after this visit, after this, Washington Declaration, what are some of the, I guess you might say, side effects, some of the possible effects of this visit?
We have already seen unbelievably bullying and rough, unrefined words and rhetorics coming out of Beijing for the past several days. So already the reaction is very clear. And so there's a challenge. And Korea had to make a choice. The thing is, it's been a while since South Korea has been talking about strategic ambiguity. And that has been in place for about, perhaps, I don't know, in my counting, about 10 years. things have so vastly for the last 10 years, even the last 5 years. China, Russia, they used to be strong members of the global community, and they are no longer. And there are all these things happening that's unbelievable. If you would tell us 5, 6 years ago that all these things would be happening in this world by 2023, you would be saying probably you're lying. And so, things have to change, and strategic ambiguity is no longer working. And so Korea made a strong statement this time with regard to its relationship with the United States. And now it's time, after this summit in Washington, for Korean government to think about and invest some time to come up with clear statement on its policy toward China and Russia. What it should say is not like we are taking a fully side with the United States and you're all our enemies, not that. Keeping the firm standing with the United States in the center of the position. At the same time, I think South Korea should articulate what are the areas where we can indeed work with China and others in this changing environment. And I think that should define the room in which we can operate and maneuver over a situation rather than just keeping quiet altogether. And the step was well taken in Washington, and now next step should be taken with regard to the idea of how we're going to handle China going forward.
Professor, I do want to go back to one point, this whole concept of extended deterrence. And then there was a comment by Kim Tae-hyo, the Deputy National Security Advisor here in Korea, about, this de facto nuclear weapon sharing or 사실상 최초의 핵 공유 with the United States. And then it seemed like the United States, through its, the U.S. National Security Council Senior Director for East Asia, Edgar Kagan, kind of taking a step back and maybe countering that, saying that's not exactly what was agreed upon. So what's that all about?
First of all, this whole idea is at a very initial stage, and we need to look at the follow-up actions, to confirm which side is exactly correct.
Okay.
But the overall observation by experts seem to be that this is not like a European arrangement or anything like that. So we need greater evidence from the side that's arguing that this is like a nuclear sharing. We need more evidence and supporting evidence for that. And that's what we're looking forward to at this point. And some of the ideas suggested is that both government, United States and Korea, will have to quickly come up with a working mechanism, like a working group or so, to demonstrate how strong this arrangement is. But for now, to repeat my point, I think experts agree that we do not have sufficient evidence to believe that this is like a nuclear sharing, at least yet.
Yes. In terms of President Yoon speaking about speeding up trilateral cooperation with the U.S. and Japan in terms of countering North Korean nuclear threats in his address to the U.S. Congress. Do you think that this will very much change the relationship that Korea has had with Japan? At least in the past few years, it's been very kind of frosty. And there seems to be a warming up of this relationship bilaterally and then now trilaterally, that this will continue?
There's no question that governments are committed to this idea and this direction, all three countries, and we see a pressing need for that to be realized with North Korea's threat and China's actions and so on. The three countries, Japan, Korea, and United States, have to work together. There's no question about it. The real problem is domestic politics. Inside Japan, there are right-wingers who are saying things that are totally unacceptable to Korean public. And then inside Korea, in Korean politics, there are people who are saying things that are totally unacceptable to Japanese public as well. So this is domestic political issue that stands in the way. And the Yoon government seems to have a strong will to work it out. And President himself has expressed his strong will many times. Kishida is coming reportedly. We cannot fully confirm 100%, but right. I think we're hearing reports that he's coming in to town very soon and in a few days' time. And And I know he is personally very committed to the cause of improving relationship with Korea as well. So his government will need to show further actions in terms of making the case to the Japanese public in its effort to overcome the opposition from its right-wingers.
I see. For a final question to wrap things up, Professor, there was also a huge business contingent, a delegation that went on this trip as well. What did you make of some of the accomplishments or the deals or MOUs that were made during this trip? Do you think that they were tangible accomplishments, or do you think that maybe it's not enough?
It was a good idea to bring such a big business delegation, and I'm sure they had very much a very productive conversation that lays foundation for the future cooperation. So I'm sure that I have no doubt that a lot of things must have been achieved under the cover. But in terms of on the surface, what it was expressed, there were some real key concerns about, for instance, automobiles, electric vehicle subsidy issues, and then semiconductors, the CHIPS Act side requirements for receiving the subsidy from the United States, and then also nuclear power generation cooperation, like in places like Czech Republic, where a Korean company is in dispute with the United States counterpart and so on. We needed some solid action on those three fronts, but it was very disappointing that we could not see any of those in the final outcome. We do understand that election is coming in the United States next year, presidential election. So politically speaking, it is understandable. But, the fact remains that these issues remain on the table. They need to be worked out, to further strengthen the relationship between the two countries.
Yes. Well, thank you for recapping this very important state visit by President Yoon, and take care. We look forward to our next conversation. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much.
Everybody, this was Professor Kim Myung-ju with the first of two special interviews today. I'll be back in just a moment.
Morning Wave in Busan wakes you up with trendy music, hot issues, and the most updated news every morning. Begin your day with Morning Wave in Busan with Catherine.
This is our second special interview for this Tuesday morning. And now we're going to switch tables and we're going to talk about this piece of legislation that seems to be quite controversial, this Nursing Act, or 간호법 개정. It has stirred a lot of conversation, not just within the medical industry, but also in the political field as well. Let's find out more about this very hot button issue with Professor Cho Hee-kyung. She's a law professor from Hongik University. Let's say hi to her. Hi, Professor. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, so first of all, if you can briefly give us the background and tell us about this new piece of legislation, this Nursing Act.
This is a new law to provide a legal foundation to define the roles and duties of nurses by law, and also to essentially provide a basis in law to improve their working conditions. Currently, the only piece of legislation in Korea that regulates the medical profession generally is the Medical Services Act, or 의료법, and that law has very little to say about nurses, and it has been long accepted that the working conditions of nurses are very difficult. For example, we have some 460,000 licensed nurses in Korea, but fewer than half of them are actually in practice because of the difficult working conditions. An average career span of a nurse from a survey that I have seen is 7 years, which is very short and which is a real waste of, trained human resources. And this law is intended essentially to provide a better legal foundation to improve working conditions of nurses.
Right. So you mentioned the Medical Services Act. So what does that law currently say?
With regard to nurses, the law only says that nurses shall act under the direction of doctors, and that's all. It doesn't actually define what the role of a nurse is, what their duties should be, and so forth. And so, essentially, nurses were considered to be subordinate to doctors, and they couldn't really do anything by themselves without the direction of a doctor. Now, what the new Nursing Act would do is nurses still have to act under direction of doctors, but the main duty, the definition of nurses' main role is newly defined to be not just assisting physicians' diagnosis, but carrying out medical prescriptions in general. And so this is the sticking point because, generally speaking, making a new law to provide a better legal foundation for a licensed profession such as nurses shouldn't be controversial at all. But where the controversy arises is because the interests of doctors and other medical professions apart from nurses are seen to be clashing under this Nursing Act. The doctors are concerned that their power base is basically being eroded, and that nurses may be able to open up their own independent practice without doctors. Other professions such as practical nurse or 간호 조무사, as they're known in Korean, are concerned that the new law doesn't say anything about their status and that they would no longer be able to be employed directly by, for example, local healthcare centers and so forth without nurses being there as well. And so it's really about the sort of competing interests of different professions. But what I don't really, I understand where they're coming from, but with regard to doctors, I think they are being very selfish as usual. And I'll get back to that point. But with regard to other medical professions, such as the practical nurses, there's absolutely no reason why we cannot legislate a special law or amend the Nursing Act to address other medical professions as well. It doesn't make sense to say, well, we can't make things better or improve things for nurses because practical nurses are not included. We can do both, but maybe not in this particular piece of legislation.
I see. Well, in terms of this act, is it being enacted? Meaning, has it become law?
Well, it has been passed by the National Assembly.
Okay.
And in fact, it was. The voting went mostly along the party lines, with the opposition party voting in favor and the party in power, the government party, voting against. But I must say that a couple of lawmakers from the ruling party actually crossed the side and voted for the Nursing Act. And one of them is a former nurse who is now a lawmaker, who has been a nurse for more than 3 decades. And she knows so well the difficulties that nurses face and how urgently this kind of law is needed. And so despite the fact that the ruling party in principle was actually opposing this law, she followed her conscience and voted for the law. Now, it still has to get the approval of the president, and there is a chance that the president may veto it, in which case it will go back to the National Assembly, but I hope that he doesn't.
Well, I know it may not necessarily be a legal issue, but I'm very curious, Professor, as to why or what the real difficulties for nurses are. I know there's a high turnover rate, that many people leave the profession, they're leaving in droves, but what do you think is the biggest issue? Is it overwork, or is it just, what do you think is the main issue with nurses?
I think it's definitely overwork, underpaid, and also a particular tradition within the profession, something called burning or teum. It's a little bit like what medical interns used to be treated to. So being made to do difficult work for not really for any reason, but because you're new there, to kind of train them into submission of carrying out superiors' orders, and I think the fact that they are not able to use their own brains, and I mean, I'm not saying that nurses are not using their brains, but they are always under subordinated to doctors' orders, and also the superior nurses' orders makes it very difficult, I think, for individual nurses to get the kind of satisfaction from work. But we know how important their work is, particularly during the COVID period.
Yes.
When we saw all those patients being isolated, and how diligently and compassionately these nurses gave up their time and going above and beyond the call of duty to help the patients. And so certainly there are really, really dedicated nurses who are committed to the profession. And the unfortunate fact is that the conditions of the profession do not allow them to enjoy a long, healthy career. This is the thing. They often get burnt out. They often get frustrated, dissatisfied, and unhappy and unhealthy, and end up leaving the profession.
For a final question, Professor, some seem to question whether we actually need this separate law to regulate the scope of work for nurses. What about for other countries? If we had to do a comparison, do other countries have a separate nursing act, or does it all fall under something similar to the Medical Services Act?
At least 90 or more countries around the world do have separate nursing act. India was the first country to enact a separate nursing legislation, even as far back as in 1947. Most of the OECD countries, including US, Canada, Germany, United Kingdom, etc., have a separate nursing act. That having a separate act for nurses has not caused the medical profession to, get confused, and for doctors, to be for their status to be compromised, etc. I think the problem is that we have a lack of a real sort of lack of supply of medical profession in the countryside, and doctors just simply don't want to go to the countryside. But whereas there are a lot of nurses who are actually happy to care for people in small towns and actually make house visits and house calls and so forth. And we should be looking really at best patient care rather than looking at competing professional interests of doctors and other professions.
Yes, well, we will continue to see what happens in this saga, whether it is vetoed or not. But thank you so much for joining us today. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Once again, this was Professor Cho Hee-kyung, and we spoke about this nursing act. So now we'll see if it is vetoed or not, and what the after effects of this law is. It is now 8:29, and it's time for your traffic update. So there's an accident being reported in a few spots. First up, near Baegang Tunnel, going towards Sujong Tunnel, there's a two-car collision at the Baegang Tunnel Ogui intersection. There's also an accident near Pier number 5, going toward Pier number 3, right past the Chungjang overpass exit. There's a collision between a cargo truck and a passenger car. And another accident on the Dongso overpass heading out of the city on Bumnaegor ramp. So I don't know what's happening on the roads. Be careful out there. As for the weather, it's currently 11 degrees. It's going to go all the way up to 23. Fine dust levels are looking good. Ultra fine dust levels are normal right now. And we're going to take a song break. Here it is, Change the World by Eric Clapton.
I can reach the stars, pull one down for you, shining on my heart, so you could see the truth. And this love I have inside is everything it seems. But for now I find it's only in my dreams that I can change the world. I will be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good. Baby, if I could change the world. If I could be king, even for a day, I'd take you as my queen. I'd have no other way. And our love would rule in this kingdom we have made. Till then I'd be a fool, wishing for the day that I can change the world. I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good. Baby, if I could change the world. Baby, if I could change the world. I could change the world. I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good. Baby, if I could change the world. Baby, if I could change the world. Baby, if I could change the world.
It is time for some sports and a little bit of Andrew.
A whole lot of me with these cameras on the go.
We are live
Yes.
streaming on YouTube.
Love it. It's fantastic.
I know we've been getting some comments. And may I ask our listeners, don't send in mean comments. Like, don't comment like, "Oh, your hair looks weird today," or we don't want to hear it. We don't. Or like, "Andrew, you're
Let me
packing
know.
on a few." Or
Yeah,
like,
well,
we don't want to hear it. Be nice.
Well, when
Yes.
I'm on here, honesty is the best policy. So whatever you need to do, you need to do.
The camera adds like what? Like 5 kilos, right?
Yeah, 15 on my. I don't know. It's all right. No, it's good. I enjoy it.
Yes.
It's nice, but it's I'll have to, the way that PDM has the camera set up, I'll have to keep my nose hairs trimmed.
Oh, Andrew, you look so handsome.
He's got. Oh, there you go. Is
You
this
look
a
nice
new?
on
is it
camera.
oh, I thought that someone made that comment. I was getting excited. I'm like, already? All you do is ask for nice comments and they deliver. Anyway, we are here for sports. And really, there's only one place for us to start today because it's probably the biggest news. Well, I'm going to say the biggest news in sporting news in Korea. And that is with the Lotte Giants.
Oh, my goodness. goodness. So what is this? This is...
That was my clip. I was at the game on Sunday.
Yes.
The game to change all games, if you will, or to change the standings in the KBO. So despite having 2 games rained out last week, the Lotte Giants extended their win streak to 8 games yesterday. That is the longest win streak the team has had in 13 years.
13 years?
13 years since they've won 8 in a row. And that is, I'm trying to think who would have been playing on the team at that time, because I was around, but I don't know. I probably wasn't going. Maybe I was going to more games than I am now. Hard. Everything's a blur. So the team beat the Hanwha Eagles in 2 midweek games before taking 2 more over the weekend against Kiom. Now, all 4 games came at Sajik Stadium, but on Sunday, I want to say this game was a bit special because Lotte, they took the early lead in front of a sold-out crowd. All right, now that's the first time I can remember, I guess last season for Ideho's retirement game.
Yes.
That was sold out. I mean, there was people selling tickets for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of won. But, on Sunday was just a regular game.
Yes.
Well, it wasn't a regular game when Sajik is sold out. So they went out, they took an early lead, but then they were down 3-2. But in the 7th inning, thanks to the hot bat of Zach Rex,
Yes.
Lotte hammered in 3 runs to secure the win. Now, not only did they continue that win streak, that's the longest in 13 years, they are now at the top of the KBO standings.
Yes.
Woo!
Yay.
Well done, gentlemen, for the first time in 11 years. So when people always ask, how's things going in Busan with the Lotte Giants? We always go like that. We always stumble and go, it's a bit of a roller coaster usually.
Yes.
And I'm going to knock on wood here because I don't want to jinx anything, but it's a good feeling right now.
What do we need to do?
I
Do
don't
we need
know.
to hold on to the wood, knock on wood?
Yes.
Fingers crossed. What
Just
else?
to hug
What
the
else?
tree? I'm not really
Yes.
sure. Yeah, so for our listeners who are looking to get to another game, they are back at Sajik this weekend. But if you don't have tickets already, it might be a bit tough. And the weather doesn't look great for the weekend, for Friday and Saturday anyway.
Oh, no.
So the Friday game, because Friday is Orinal, it's a holiday, the game will start at 2 p.m. So if you're looking to check that out, even on TV, remember it does start at 2 p.m. 5 p.m. first pitch on Saturday.
Sure.
And then on Sunday, it's back to a 2 p.m. start. There are tickets available for Sunday's game, but Friday and Saturday are already sold out. All right. And
wow.
this, I don't know, it's just the buzz in the air around Sajik, around the Lotte Giants right now in Busan is quite amazing. And hopefully we can keep this run going.
Yes, well, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I just hope that we'll be on this same wavelength come next week.
Yeah, so they're off to Gwangju to take on the Kia Tigers tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday before returning to Sajik on the weekend to take on the Samsung Lions.
All right, sounds good. All right, what else do you have for us today?
A couple of updates. Now, one event that I always look forward to every year is the LPGA Tour that takes place in Korea.
Sure.
And since it was in Busan a few years ago, every year it's going to change venues. And the LPGA and the Cape LPGA announced last week that it'll be in Paju this year at the Sowon Valley Country Club, the Sowon Hills course, which just makes it even harder for me to get to because that's way up in Gyeonggi and that's a bit of a trek, all right? So, but that'll be from October 19th to the 22nd. Obviously, more news will be coming out every day about that. So when I have a better understanding and maybe some events involving it, I'll let our listeners know.
Let us know. Let's move on.
To men's soccer. Now, we're not going to get into Tottenham yet.
No.
Yet.
Painful.
So the Korean men's soccer team, they had their, last week I believe we talked about the next round of friendlies that'll be taking place in Korea. We're not really sure on the venues yet for that. Again, I'll keep everyone updated. But after the last round of friendlies that took place here just, a month and a bit ago, after, South Korea's 2-1 loss to Uruguay, Kim Min-jae told reporters that he was mentally spent.
I remember this one.
And a lot of people were like, holding their breath. What does this mean?
Is he retiring
exactly.
from,
And he kind of said he wanted to concentrate on his club football.
Right.
Well, I can understand why. Napoli is flying at the moment.
Doing so,
rather
amazing.
than the national team, which kind of, new manager, Jurgen Klinsmann, was taken back from that. And he actually went on a recent trip, the manager did, to Europe to visit all of his players in Europe to see them play. Now, he had planned on watching Kim play in the Champions League, but Kim Min-jae was suspended because he had too many yellow cards, which actually was a bit of a blessing in disguise for Jurgen Klinsmann because he had a chance to go out and eat with them at a restaurant and chat and actually have a one-on-one conversation with them. Klinsmann came out and said that he explained his feelings and his emotions, many thoughts in his mind, but it's all good. He's all focused again and looking forward to the next games with the national team. It's good to all know that we coaches are on his side. So I think that is, a big sigh of relief, not just for Klinsmann and his coaching staff, but all National League or national team fans.
We need him,
to say the least. Yes,
I mean he is, at least in my opinion, my humble opinion. I'm not, a sports expert, but we desperately need him on that team.
Yes, definitely. I think there's no replacing him.
Yes.
He's probably one of the top 10 defenders in the world
right now.
Right now. So, and he's also playing for one of the best teams in Europe. So, definitely need him on our side.
All right. We have time for a couple more items.
Yeah, just real quickly here with the NHL playoffs, they will be entering the second round. I only brought this up because there was a few upsets. So just like the NBA, there's a couple wild cards that get into it. And in the NHL, there are a few. And the Florida Panthers were the wild card 2 slot. And they ended up knocking off the number 1 seed Boston Bruins in 7 games, which is amazing. Now, the Toronto Maple Leafs made it into the second round of the playoffs for the first time, I want to say since it's 2006 or 2004. There was like a thing every time they would lose in the first round, lose in the first round, lose in the first round.
Is your team here?
No, they're not. They didn't make the playoffs.
Oh, well.
I'll cheer for Edmonton, I guess. And they're into the second round. They'll take on the Vegas Golden Knights. On the other side of things, it's the Seattle Kraken, one of the newest teams in the NHL, taking on the Dallas Stars. And we're still waiting for the results between the New Jersey Devils and the New York Rangers, which I believe that game starts now, right around now. So we'll know by next week. But there might be more teams knocked out by that time. So
are we going to let you go, or do we really have to cover what happened with Tottenham and Liverpool?
Well, I think we have to, just for the simple reason that, for our Tottenham fans, and we know that there's a lot in the area, Son Heung-min, I believe, the entire Tottenham team didn't have a great first half.
First 15 minutes.
First 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was just terrible.
First 5 minutes, they were down.
Defenders all need to
2-0 to Liverpool. And then Mo Salah made it 3-0 10 minutes later. But, they did climb back. They did make it 3-3 with a goal by Richarlison. And also Son Heung-min reached double digits again. So he has 10 goals.
7 seasons in a row.
7 seasons in a row. And, Richarlison, who used to play for Everton, which is, Merseyside derby rival, he went absolute bananas when he scored his goal. And then, 5 minutes later.
Not even 5 minutes. It was like 90 seconds?
I think,
93 seconds, or what was it?
After the kickoff. Diogo Jota, he scored the goal to seal the win for Liverpool.
There was a lot of controversy, though.
There was so much going on in that game. On the sidelines, Jurgen Klopp getting in the fourth official's face and then pulling his hamstring.
That was so hilarious.
I mean, as a Liverpool fan, I couldn't help but laugh at that.
That was funny.
The other thing is Man City is at the top of the league. Well, for the moment, Arsenal do play tonight, and we'll see if they can win. Then they'll go back on top. But Man City has a few games in hand, and they could stay in first place.
All right. Thanks for the sports roundup, and we'll definitely check in with you next week. Thanks, Andrew.
Have a good one.
All right. I'll be back in a moment.
Busan has proved to be the globally competitive host city of many major international events such as 2005 APEC Summit, 2011 High-Level Forum on Aid Effectiveness, and 2014 ITU Conference. Now, we aspire to host the 2030 World Expo here in Busan.
2030 Busan World Expo will be a gift to our future generations.
Busan is the place to be to connect to Eurasia and to the world and experience the future.
We create our future in our home city of Busan. Future, innovation, progress. 2030 Busan World Expo.
Good morning. Good morning.
Begin your day with Morning Wave in Busan.
It's now time for Global Busan Focus, which means Stephanie's here. Stephanie, good morning.
Happy Tuesday.
I know. So we are, of course, live streaming. So let's wave to the camera.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, we're getting used to it.
Yeah.
Having this camera like literally
it's
like
so close
in your
to
face.
me.
I know.
Yes.
It's so
I feel
overwhelming.
Yes.
Let's just leave it at that. All right. What is our topic for today?
So today we're going to be talking about meaning of labor, what it means to acknowledge the hard work of people and improve upon poor working conditions.
Yes.
And for that, I interviewed 석병수 부산 노동권익센터장, or director of the Busan Labor Rights Center, Mr. 석병수. So when it comes to labor-related issues, 69-hour work week policy is one of the hottest issues. So I asked him to explain to our listeners what the 69 work week policy is. Let's take a listen.
현행 근로기준법은 주당 40시간, 연장 근로 12시간을 합쳐서 한 주에 52시간을 넘겨서 일하지 못하도록 하고 있습니다. 주 단위로 엄격하게 노동시간을 관리하고 있습니다. 그런데 최근 정부는 노사가 합의하면 월, 또 분기, 반기, 연 단위로 유연하게 관리하자는 건데요. 예를 들어 한 달에 3주를 주당 69시간 일하고 마지막 주에 쭉 휴가를 쓸 수 있게 하겠다는 것이죠. 즉 몰아서 일하고 몰아서 쉬게 하자는 건데 이게 정부의 기본 취지입니다.
So tell us about the first clip.
So he said the current labor standards act allows 40 hours a week, 12 hours of overtime, in total 52 hours a week. And Korea strictly manages working hours on a weekly basis. But recently, the government has suggested that if labor and management agree, they could be flexible on a monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, and yearly basis, thus allowing them to work up to 69 hours a week for 3 weeks a month, and then have a remaining time off. So simply put, the government suggests allowing workers to work for an extended period and then have the needed time off afterwards.
Right, and as you mentioned from the top, such a hot issue right now, of course, with the work week, how many hours and whatnot. So tell us more.
Right. So the government emphasizes that this is intended to bring more flexibility for workers. And if you work up to 69 hours, you will be guaranteed 11 hours of continuous rest. But many think that this is not possible, that it won't work, because even under the 52-hour work week, there are still a lot of people that work until maybe 9 or 10 p.m. every day. So I asked him about his thoughts on this. Let's take a listen.
네, 국제노동기구 ILO는 11년 전 2012년 보고서에서 노동자의 건강권을 위해 단 한 주라도 노동시간이 48시간을 넘겨서는 안 된다는 입장을 제시한 바 있습니다. 지금 논란이 되고 있는 정부의 노동시간 개편안은 앞에서 말했듯이 몰아서 일하고 쉴 때 한꺼번에 쉬자는 것인데요. 하루 11시간 휴식이 보장된다 하더라도 한 주 69시간을 노동자가 일을 할 수 있다는 것 자체가 문제인 것 같습니다. 일주일에 6일을 매일 밤 9시, 10시까지 일을 하고 게다가 그렇게 2, 3주 계속 연속 일을 하다 하면 어디 제대로 된 삶이라고 할 수 있겠습니까? 그래서 노동계는 정부의 노동시간 개편안이 과로사를 조장하는 법이라고까지 비판을 하는데요. 외국의 사례를 보면 프랑스는 주당 44시간, 영국과 덴마크는 주당 48시간을 넘기지 못하게 상한선을 엄격히 두고 있습니다. 독일은 아예 하루 평균 8시간을 넘기지 못하도록 법으로 명시하고 있습니다. 사실 우리나라 직장 문화는 현재 있는 연차도 다 못 쓰고 있는 상황인데 일주일을 연달아 또는 한 달씩 몰아서 휴가를 갈 수 있을까요? 저는 그렇지 못할 거라고 생각합니다. 상황이 이렇다 보니 많은 노동자들이 현실을 잘 모르는 이야기고 노동시간만 늘리는 법안이라고 비판을 하고 있습니다.
Tell us about this clip.
So he said in a 2012 report by the International Labor Organization, it suggested that working hours should not exceed 48 hours a week for workers' health rights. Right now, the government is suggesting allowing people to work all at once and then having continuous rest after. But even if 11 hours of rest a day is guaranteed, the problem is working that 69 hours a week. If you work, he said, 6 days a week from 9 or until 9 or 10 p.m. and if you work like that for 2 or 3 consecutive weeks, that's not quality life. That is why the labor community criticizes the government's plan to reform working hours, saying it encourages death from overwork. And when looking at other countries, the limit is strictly 44 hours per week in France, 48 hours per week in UK and Denmark, and Germany says that workers cannot exceed an average of 8 hours per day. And Korea's workplace culture is in a situation where workers can't even use their vacation days properly, so taking a whole week or month off from work is impossible. That's why many criticize the bill.
I see. And for those of you who are tuning in right now, we're listening to clips from the director of the Busan Labor Rights Center, Mr. Seok Byung-soo.
While improving the working conditions of migrant workers and human rights issue is also an important issue that Busan needs to address. So I asked him what policies he thinks should be promoted in this regard. Let's take a listen.
2021년 기준으로 일터에서 사고로 사망한 이주 노동자는 102명에 달합니다. 전체 산업재해 사망자의 12.3%입니다. 이주 노동자도 일터에서 건강하고 안전하게 일할 권리가 있습니다. 법의 사각지대가 되어서는 안 됩니다. 그러기 위해서는 이주 노동자 스스로 안전하고 건강하게 일할 권리를 알아야 합니다. 이를 위해서 센터는 지난해부터 산업안전보건법, 산업재해보상보험법 내용이 들어있는 이주 노동자 안전보건 권리 수첩을 제작했습니다. 영어, 베트남어, 네팔어, 우즈베크어, 인도네시아, 중국어 등 9개 국어로 이주 노동자들이 쉽게 이해할 수 있도록 문답형으로 구성했습니다. 뿐만 아니라 노동 현장에서 안전교육을 할 때 언어 소통의 문제를 해결해 주기 위한 통역사를 지원하는 사업을 진행하고 있고 이주 노동자에 대한 노동 실태 조사를 진행하고 문제점 해결을 위한 정책 제언도 할 예정입니다. 이런 과정들을 통해서 이주 노동자도 안전한 국제도시 부산이 되었으면 좋겠습니다.
Tell us about the final clip, please.
So he said as of 2021, 102 migrant workers have died in workplace accidents, which account for 12.3% of all industrial accident deaths. And migrant workers, of course, have the right to work in a safe working place here in Korea. They should not be a blind spot in the eyes of the law, and that is why it's important for migrant workers to know their rights. He said the center has produced the Migrant Workers Safety and Health Rights Handbook containing information on the Industrial Safety and Health Act and also Industrial Accident Compensation Insurance Act, provided in different languages like English, Vietnamese, Nepali, Indonesian, Chinese. And they're also conducting a project to provide interpreters to help solve any language barrier problems. And they also plan to conduct surveys on the current situation of migrant workers and propose policies to solve problems. So he said through these policies, they hope that Busan becomes a city that's safe for all.
Indeed. Very important topic, as of course yesterday was Workers' Day here in Korea. So thanks for bringing this interview to the attention of our listeners, and we look forward to tomorrow. Thank you, Stephanie.
Bye-bye.
This was Global Busan Focus. All right, to wrap things up for today, we have been talking about the main topic at hand, this heartbreaking accident in Yeongdo. And of course, we all hope for better safety in our society. Thanks for joining us today. Here is our final song for this Tuesday morning. This is 노래방에서 by 장범준. Have a good one, everybody. We're going to sign off. Bye.
상황의 수를 계산해봤지 그땐 내가 좀 못생겨서 네가 좋아하는 노래를 알아내는 것은 필수 가성이 많이 들어가서 마이크 조절이 굉장히 조심스러웠었지 그렇게 노래방으로 가서 그녀가 좋아하는 그렇게 내가 노래를 부른 뒤 그녀의 반응을 상상하고 좀 더 잘 불러볼걸 노래를 걸거렸네. 사랑 때문에 노래를 연습하는 건 자연의 이치. 나르는 새들도 모두 사랑 노래 부르는 게 뭔가 가능성만 열어준다면. 근데 그년 남자친구가 있었지. 그것은 내 실수. 그 후로 혼자 노래방에서 복잡한 마음을 앓는네. 몇 달을 혼자 노래방에 갔는지 그렇게 노래방이 취미가 되고 그녀가 좋아하는 노래래. 괜찮은 척 안 슬픈 척 노래를 불렀네. 그렇게
부산을 한 장의 사진에 담는다면 어디로 가야 할까요? 꼬꼬마 시절 이때만큼은 세상을 내려다보며 꿈을 키웠고 용돈을 모아 산 사진기는 아직도 서랍 속에 있습니다. 시간이 흘러 키는 자라고 사진은 어디서든 찍을 수 있는 세상이 되었지만 부산의